In this lesson, we'll create an expression that will be used to control our foot banking system. Now, the first thing we'll do is create a bank channel that will be used to control the foot bank rig. Let's go ahead and add the channel to our leg controls. So with both selected, we can now choose Modify, Add Attribute, and we can always name it Bank. Now, before we do that, I'd like to point out our min and max channels. Let's go ahead and talk about any limits we might want to add. If you ever wanted to add a limit, it'd be a good idea to first just go in and start to kind of rotate the joints you'll need to add to your expression. So if we were to take this joint on the left side of our left foot here, and we start to rotate in the banking direction, which is our rotate Z, you'll notice that as we start to rotate, this joint needs to rotate in the negative direction. All right, so we can use this value then in our min field. We would then need to figure out how much it needs to rotate, and it looks like about a value of negative 45 or so would work well. So that would be the value we would plug in into the minimum field, and the max field is probably going to be the reciprocal of this, but to know for sure, we would then go ahead and grab the joint on the opposite end and start to rotate that. And again, it looks like that most certainly is the case. We can go ahead and use about a value of positive 45 as our max value. Now, we will not be adding any limits because this allows animators to push this control even further. So let's go ahead and grab our two controls again. We'll name our channel Bank, and we'll now choose OK. Alright, great. Now we've already figured out what axis we need to tie into our expression. We also know what direction each joint needs to rotate in. This is very important because we need this information to plug into our expression in order for it to work. Now, since I have bank left selected on the left foot, we'll go ahead and start here. It's now time to open up our expression editor. We can go to Window, Animation Editors. We can go ahead and grab it from here. You'll see that it's automatically going to load in the object we need. And to find the attribute we need to work with, we could always go ahead and select it in the attributes list. So this is a way to get to the path we need. Eventually, we would take that path and add it into the expression text field here. This is where we build the expression. Now, if we want to get to the path instantly, we'd always go ahead and just highlight the channel from the channel box, and we could either control right-click and choose expressions, or we can go to the edit menu in the channel box and choose expressions, and you'll see that now, take a look, we now have the path to the rotate Z channel. Let's go ahead and copy that. Again, we'll need to use this very soon. We'll go to the expression text field. We're going to now add two backslashes. This is a comment mark, and this is a way to add notes to our code because Maya is not going to evaluate anything on this commented line. So I'll go ahead and paste the name of our channel, and we'll also go ahead and add a name for our expression. We'll go ahead and call this footbank EXPR, just to abbreviate expression. Great, we're now ready to click Create. The expression has been made, and I'd like to explain exactly why we took this route of just going in and getting it created now instead of building the entire expression first. You'll see that under the Select Filter menu, we have a few options here, and by default, this should be set to by object attribute name. What that means is that if we were to go in and select an object in our viewport, you'll see that it's almost as if the expression has been wiped out. What's happening is Maya is just loading in another object here. So it's really straightforward stuff, but you'll see that if we try to get back to the expression, it would be very difficult using this choice. So what I'd like to do is go ahead and switch the select filter to by expression name. Take a look, there is our expression, and now it doesn't matter what we select because it'll always be loaded in here. Alright, great. Let's go ahead and start to add more to our code. I'll hold down Control and scroll forward with the middle mouse button to zoom in a little bit closer so you can see exactly what I'm about to type. Now after the comment, let's go ahead and type in left so we know that this is for the left foot. And then we'll go ahead and hit enter a few times to take the next part of our code, which is our rotate Z channel here, and let's go ahead and move this a few lines underneath so we could start to add some information. Alright, now above this line, we'll need to work with an if-else statement to get this to work. So what this means is that Maya is going to know exactly when this channel should be influenced by our bank channel. So if we get to a moment where our bank value is less than 0, if we start to move in the negative direction, then it will start to influence the rotate Z of bank left. If that's not true, well then we'll need to make sure that the expression will not cause the rotate Z to be influenced by the bank channel. So if it starts to move in the positive direction, there should be no movement from the rotate Z of bank left. So let's go ahead and start to build this. On the line above, let's go ahead and type in if, and we'll put an open and close parentheses. Within the parentheses, we'll need to put the path to our bank channel, and we'll also need to put a little bit more information as far as what direction the channel moves in so that we know exactly how that should influence bank left. So let's go ahead and find the path to our channel. We'll simply go ahead and grab the control that it's tied to. We'll copy its name, and let's go ahead and paste that inside of the parentheses. It's very important that we just go ahead and copy and paste that name instead of trying to remember what it was, because if there are any misspellings, well, Maya doesn't know what the object is. We'll get a syntax error, which simply means that because of that misspelling, the expression will not work. Alright, so we just want to get into the habit of just copying and pasting our names in so we can be on the safe side. Now we need to go ahead and add .bank exactly the way we have spelled bank in the add attribute dialog. It is case sensitive, and I've used a lowercase b, so that's just something to keep in mind. So if animl01.bank is, let's say, less than or equal to 0, so if this is true, we know that the bank channel should influence the rotate Z channel of bank left. So let's go ahead and set this up. After our last parentheses, we'll go ahead and put an open curly bracket. We'll skip over the next line. We'll go one more line underneath, and we'll put a closed curly bracket. This will let Maya evaluate whatever we have after our if statement. So if the if statement is true, it's going to evaluate the next part of our code here. Now this part of the code isn't quite finished yet. We need to make sure that the rotate Z is equal to our bank channel. So let's go ahead and copy that, its entire path. We'll go ahead and paste, and we'll put a semicolon. The semicolon is kind of like a period to end this part of the code. Alright, so this is looking pretty good. Now what we could do is work on adding our else statement. So if this is not the case, if bank is greater than 0, then we want to make sure that bank left will not be influenced by the bank channel. So here's what we'll do. We'll go ahead and copy everything from if all the way to our last curly bracket. It's going to be Control C, and now after the last curly bracket, let's go ahead and type in else space, and then we'll go ahead and paste in our code. Now we need to go ahead and change a few things around. So else if animl_bank, if this is greater than or equal to 0, then we want to make sure that bank left dot rotate Z is equal to 0, just to make sure it doesn't get past that value. Alright, beautiful. So everything looks good. We should always just double check our work, making sure everything's spelled correctly. We've done a good job at making sure that there will not be any syntax errors, so we'll go ahead and choose Edit to update our expression. Let's go ahead and take a look. When we start to move our bank channel, you'll notice that it's working just fine. How exciting is that? You'll also see that if we were to grab the joint tied to the expression and take a look at its channel, the rotate Z, it's being blocked by an expression, so we cannot control it directly. Now if you'd like to remove the expression, you could always go in and right-click on the channel and choose Break Connections. That's one way to get rid of it. Or another way, if I were to go ahead and undo that back, is to go to the expression editor, go ahead and select the expression and choose Delete. Alright, but again, we probably don't want that, so let's go ahead and press the Z key to bring the expression back. All right, now to set up the joint on the opposite end, well, this is going to be a piece of cake. All we need to do is go in and copy everything that we've done here. Let's go ahead and highlight our code. It's going to be Control-C. Let's go ahead and go a few more lines down, paste, and now we just need to reword a few things. All right, so let's go in and take a look. So if NML like bank, if this is less than 0, well, that means that bank right should not work. So let's go ahead and change bank left here to right. And instead of the rotate Z equaling our bank channel, we need to go ahead and make sure that this is equal to 0. So again, when we start to move in the negative direction, this channel here, the rotate Z, will not move past 0. Now, if our bank is greater than 0, then bank right should work. All right, so we just need to switch bank left here to right. And instead of this equaling 0, we need to make sure it looks at the bank channel. So let's go ahead and grab the name of its path. We'll go ahead and paste that. We'll replace that 0 with nmlleg.bank, and we'll choose edit. All right, watch this. Now when we start to move our bank channel, you'll see that we have this really nice transition. We're getting a very natural looking bank. So we move this to a negative value and positive value. You can see it kind of switches out both joints. So that's super cool. So that's the process that we'd go through for setting up a banking rig. This is just one way to do that. Another option is to set up controls that you'd use to drive these joints. You can create more curves. And these are some techniques that we cover in our character rigging for production course, our introduction to character rigging course, and you can also take a look at our advanced character rigging course once you're ready for more, let's say, complicated subjects that you can basically use to push your rigs even further. But I'd recommend going through those courses after you have gone through the Quick Start series. All right, so now that we know how to set up our banking control, let's go ahead and make sure we do the same thing on the opposite side. So what you'd want to do here is just go ahead and take everything that we have made here for the left foot. We'd simply go in and copy all of this, go a few lines underneath, paste, and we'd need to reword a few things. So instead of L, we'd simply switch that to an R, and so on and so forth. We'd also want to just make sure that each joint is moving in the right direction and that it's all fed back into the expression. So if we were to go ahead and grab, let's say, the joint on the right side of the right foot, and we start to move in the z-axis, we know that we need to use a negative value. And the joint on the opposite end needs to go in the positive direction. So these are some things to keep in mind. I'll go ahead and leave the right side up to you. And in the next lesson, we can go ahead and move on to another topic.